Behind! Dadgummit, let's go, huh? Let's go.
Alrighty, and welcome everybody to the latest episode of Bolts and Colts. This is Brian Latendry here with my good buddy Brian Riley, who before we started just said to me, dude, I don't know how you're a Chargers fan.
I don't. Listen to me. It's got to be just soul crushing.
It's unbelievable. Like, the thing is, like, if you just looked at this season, right, and you were like, man, how can somebody even be a fan of that team? Like, that is too much to bear. But here's the thing. I've been a Chargers fan for over 30 years now. So this is like the life of a Chargers fan. What's amazing is that I didn't anticipate that they would still be able to surprise me with the ways that they lose 30 years into my relationship with this team. It is unbelievable. So I guess we're starting with the Chargers, and they switched it up this week. You know, rather than giving the game away in the final minutes, have someone come back against them and beat them in the final seconds of the game. They chose this week to almost win the game in the final seconds, only to not win it in the most Chargers-esque fashion. So for anybody who didn't see the game this week, Chargers lost 31-26 to the Raiders in a game that, to me, it almost seemed like nobody wanted to win. It was a game that just had no pace or feel to it. The Raiders are an ugly team to watch.
Oh, yes.
And I felt like the Chargers kind of took on that personality in this game because their offense was very much fits and starts in this game. I mean, even just like right out of the gate, watching Herbert, it was a game that if you just looked at the stat sheet, it doesn't tell the story of the game. Like in the first drive, Herbert had, I think it was Guyton over the middle for a touchdown, and I thought it was a good throw. I thought he should have got there, but missed him by like millimeters. And had he caught it in for a touchdown, he'd already beat the corner. It was definitely touchdown if he caught the ball. So he drops that. Then the Colts and the Chargers had the ball first. So then the Raiders come back out, and on the first pass of the game from Carr, he gets hit on the pass, and the ball flutters up into the air and just out of the fingertips of a Chargers defender. So they almost had an interception on the first pass from the Raiders of the game after almost having a touchdown. And it's those kind of near misses that are just excruciating to watch. And so fast forward to the end of the game where they're down 31-26, a touchdown wins the game. Herbert puts him on a nice drive, and the kid played great. I mean, he 28 of 42, 326 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? He continues to move the ball. He continues to, especially when the play calling allows him to do that. Some of the play calling is just absolute garbage from the Chargers. But he leads him down the field. Some clock management mistakes, I think, on the way down the field. Some of it, again, though, play calling. But anyways, they got 2 cracks at the end zone. Now, at this point in time, Keenan Allen had 9 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown on 11 targets. 9 out of 11 he caught. He doesn't get targeted on the last 2 plays of the game that are plays to the end zone. The first play goes to Mike Williams. It's a ball, and it just goes out of his hands as he hits the ground. Second play, they throw to Parham, and he appears to catch the ball with no time left on the clock. 2 angles of the replay looks like a catch. Chargers win. They're celebrating. Anthony Lynn on the sideline is celebrating. The players are celebrating. Of course, the booth reviews it. The third angle on it, you can see the ball comes loose when he hits the ground. Chargers lose. But there was at least a 2-minute period of time where they legit thought they won. and were celebrating and everything. And just to see Anthony Lynn's face when the review came and he just put his hands up on the side of his head, like he couldn't even believe it. But so just again, finding another way to lose. I mean, not even talking about the defense. The defense, again, they let teams hang around. They let the Raiders hang around. They gave up 160 yards rushing. They're not stopping anyone. The Chargers have to score 30 points a game minimum to win, and here it proved once again. They come up 26 points, not good enough because the defense can't stop anybody. And so it's just absolutely heartbreaking for this team. But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Peyton Manning go like 1-15 in his first season?
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, the quarterbacks, I know Peyton Manning is going to go down as one of the greatest but it seems like the quarterbacks coming out of college have an easier transition now because they all run that pro style offense. Mm-hmm. Look at Burrow, look at Hebert, like these guys. And I'm not a big fan of Tua, but you can tell he's adapted pretty well.
He has, dude. I've been impressed so far.
Where a lot of these quarterbacks, like Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning struggled. He threw a ton of picks. Not really. He wasn't as good as these guys were today coming out of college, like the first or second year. So you got to see these trajectories coming from Hebert and Tua. And who's the other guy? I'm sorry. Who's the other
Burrow.
Guy? And Burrow, these guys are going to be killers when they get kind of used to the timing and the speed and the schemes. I'm excited. This new quarterback crop is just fantastic. I love Hebert, Bry. You guys are in a good spot.
Oh, dude.
It's just that Charger curse, man. It rips your heart out of you.
It really is a curse at this point. It can't be anything else. There has to be supernatural forces at play at this point.
It's like the Red Sox Yankee curse, Babe Ruth.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I don't know what it's. I think it may take the Spanos family selling that team in order to have the Chargers be able to come back to life. I think we're at the point now where you can't continue to blame the injuries because your offense is still putting up 25 to 30 points a game and you can't stop anybody and you're losing games. This was another game that they absolutely needed to win. So here we are at this point at 2-6, which means that they have to now basically, if we're talking playoffs, they got to win out. They have to win out the rest of the year. Now, and a team that hasn't been able to put together 2 wins in a row this season.
I know. What's going on with your boy Josh Kelly? Is it Josh Kelly?
It is Josh Kelly. And it's funny because when I did the solo episode last week, I noticed something, and I kind of noticed it with Jonathan Taylor as well from the Colts. When Josh Kelly first started getting the ball this season, and when Jonathan Taylor first started getting the ball this season, they were running strong. They were running north-south. They were hitting the hole, and they were eating up yards, and they were impressing. But what I've noticed with Taylor and also with Kelly over the past few weeks is they seem to have slowed down a step. They seem a little bit more indecisive. They're not as north-south as they have been in the past, and they're struggling a little bit. Yep. And they're not. And what's happening is their carries are getting taken by other people. So on the Colts side, it's Wilkins, right, who's been eating up some
Hines of Wilkins,
yeah, it has been eating up some of his. And on the and last week, I think it was the week before, it was Troy Maine Pope, but this past week it was Belange, I think, who ate up some of Kelly's carries. Now,
yes,
that's not to say that these guys can't bounce back, but I don't know if they thought. If they felt too confident coming out of a few good games in the beginning of the season and felt like they had established themselves and they kind of had a secure spot. But if you're Josh Kelly, when Austin Eckler goes down, you got to own that spot. That's your opportunity to show, at the very least, you're the number 2 back on this team.
Right.
But that you could be a number 1 back on this team. And I would say the same thing for Taylor, right? When Mac goes down, it's like you've been given a golden opportunity to cement yourself as absolutely the number 1 backup, but if not that, then the number 1 running back. Now, again, that doesn't take play calling into account. And I feel bad for Kelly because he's either getting the ball on a shitty running play that everybody knows is coming, and has to try to make something out of nothing. And I think Taylor gets put in that situation a lot too. Or for Kelly, he's the check down on a passing play where all of the other options are covered. And by the time it checks down to him, he's only getting a couple yards to begin with. So I feel like he's still trying to make the most of what's happening out there. But it just seems to me like when you watch him and you watch Taylor, and then you see someone like Wilkins in the week that Pope and even the other guy this past week, these other guys are just hitting the hole a lot faster. And so they're just getting an extra yard or two every time they touch the ball. And so they're going to continue to eat up carries of these bigger guys unless they really start just hitting that hole quick. Like, and understanding, like, you don't try to make too much out of something, because these running plays are plays that everybody knows are coming. Get a couple of yards, get 3 yards, get 4 yards if you can. Like, there's no time for dancing. Like, you got to get there.
And Brad, that's a great observation too, because they are rookies and they're probably not used to these big guys, these big bodies just crashing down on them every week. So that's probably why they're not hitting that hole as fast and as hard as they were in the beginning. So yeah, that's a great point, valid point, and I definitely see it now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Kelly still has a bright future. I would certainly hope that they continue to try to give him looks and get him the ball, because I think and this is what kills me, is that Anthony Lynn is a running backs coach. And so he should be really, and maybe he is, and we're just not, necessarily seeing it, but that's his forte, is developing running backs. But this is a problem they had with Melvin Gordon when Melvin Gordon was playing for the Chargers. Now, granted, the Chargers line is absolute dog shit. So you have to preface everything with that, right? I mean, the success that Herbert has had, they're a little bit better in pass protection right now than they are with run protection. But I mean, they're a patchwork line. They've had injuries. They've been a shitty line for years now. And so to have that stacked against you to begin with. And I would argue also on the Colts side that the Colts offensive line has underperformed for as highly billed as they were coming into this season for a variety of reasons, right? But they were, at the beginning of the season, it was like, oh, thank God Phillip Rivers went to a team that has a great offensive line. He's really going to be, he's just going to have all day to throw because he's playing behind a great offensive line. Neither of these teams, their offensive lines have really performed amongst the better lines of the NFL. Certainly the Chargers are not even sniffing. I mean, I wouldn't even think them in the top half in terms of like offensive line play. And so that's part of the problem, right? Is that these guys aren't getting good holes to begin with. The play calling and the timing of the play calls to me are just absolute shit, because they're first and second down runs into the middle of the line. It's like, what are you doing? You're just wasting, you're just wasting plays and putting, and the thing is, like, for Herbert, 3rd and 9 is nothing to him. 3rd and 9 is 3rd and 1. He doesn't give a shit. Like, he's going to throw the ball 50 yards to 75. It doesn't matter to him. But you keep putting Phillip Rivers in these situations where it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. That's a little bit more to ask. Now, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about the Raiders game. I don't think so. I think we can jump into the Colts now. And I think the thing that's pissing me off about the Colts, other than the fact that this was a game that they could have won and arguably should have won.
100% should have won.
Yeah, holding their own the whole game, but never taking control of the game. The interception call on Rivers was absolute bullshit. Definitely not an interception in my mind. I'm shocked that got called as an interception. But the thing that makes me the most angry about the Rivers stuff is that every time they lose, the narrative is that Phillip Rivers lost the game.
Oh yeah, that's what I've been reading too. That's Colts fans for you. Like, but listen, I'm getting tired of Phillip Rivers' shit, to be honest with you.
Okay, all right, tell me, because I'm an apologist. So tell me, what is the problem with Phillip?
He looks old. His arm is not there. And listen, I am a Phillip Rivers fan. He is a tier or two above Jacoby Brissett. That's not the answer. I'm just saying, give him this year, let him retire, because you're not going to be able to replace him now with anyone that's better. But you got to look future. You got to look at some free agents. But he is not the answer to this team for next year or a couple years after that. Not that he would play a couple years after that, but this year, let him ride it out, let him retire, and we got to go after someone in free agency, because we have the most money in cap space next year. And then you got some big free agents coming out. So I think we ride this season out. Let's see how it turns. It's still midway, Bri? They're playing tonight for the division lead. Let's see how he performs tonight, but he just looks slow and old. There's no zip on the ball. I'm kind of alarmed. I'm worried about Phillip Rivers.
Okay, I'm willing to admit at this point that it definitely looks to me like he has lost a little something on that ball. But I also, and this game happened to be on TV here this past week, which is never the case, right? So I got to watch the game like as it happened. And again, it's at times I feel like I'm watching the Chargers because, again, the play calling, dude, the play calling is horrendous. It's very vanilla. It's very predictable. I don't think you're putting Phillip Rivers in a place to be. I don't think they're putting him in a position to be successful. Like, again, it's like I said with the Chargers, with a quarterback like Herbert, who just walked in. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's accurate. He's mobile. You can put him in difficult situations, and he's going to be able to react to those things. There were a few times the other day that I thought Rivers actually extended the play with his feet. But you can't ask him to do that. Like, again, the conceit at the beginning of this year was that Rivers is coming to a team that has a great running game and a great offensive line. How wonderful is that going to be for him to play on this team where you've got T.Y. Hilton, you've got some good young receivers, you've got a good tight end, and you've got good running backs, and you've got a great offensive line. Like, the narrative going into this season was that this is going to be the first time in 10 years that Phillip Rivers has an offensive line. That hasn't materialized. He's been under pressure almost constantly.
So,
the run blocking.
So listen, I have to play advocate here because I've been back there, and I am an aging quarterback. So is the fact that the line play doesn't look strong to you due to his age and his lack of mobility, or is it a clear observation that the line is not as strong as everyone thought it was?
I'm going to say it's a combination of things. I think it is the fact that he is a step slower. Granted, a step slower than a guy who's always been slow. I think the line has not played up to what they were billed as this year. But I also think it's the play calling. Because, again, let's look at the New England Patriots. And first of all, let's just savor the deliciousness that was Tom Brady getting destroyed the other night. That was the only thing that saved a bad football weekend, was the scowl on his face for almost that entire game. It was just delicious. And in the fact that it happened at the hands of Drew Brees was double. That was like an Oreo cookie for me of deliciousness. But that's beside the point. But you look at Brady in the Patriots offense. That offense was designed for him not to get sacked, right? It was designed for people not to reach him. The plays were designed to be quick throws with speedy receivers and yards after catch and death by 1,000 cuts. And what do we see on the Colts? We see a lot of slow developing screenplays. We see a lot of vanilla runs into the line on first and second down, and we see a lot of third and long yardage where the receivers have to get open, and we already have established that T.Y. Hilton, for whatever reason, is underperforming this year as well. Plus, they've had injuries at the other wide receiver spots. So I think part of it is a coaching thing where they're just not putting Rivers in a situation to succeed. If you have to shorten the field and shorten the playbook, you can do that and still pass the ball. Like, instead of running twice into the line to begin every freaking set of 4 downs, like, let's run a couple quick slants. Let's get a couple quick throws out there and get Rivers into a rhythm and not have him have to, time these long developing plays and stuff like that. Granted, I think he could still get it down the field when he has time, but I just don't like the position they're putting him in. And watching that offense, to me, is it just looks lost right now. Whereas in the beginning of the season, it looked like it was a well-oiled machine. I mean, when they first came out this season, it was like, holy crap, Rivers looks healthy, and that offense is carving people up. looks awesome. Everything's going according to plan. And now it's like they're discombobulated. I don't understand it. They seem like they've regressed, not just Rivers, but everyone seems to have regressed on that offense. We just talked about Taylor. We talked about T.Y. Hilton. We talked about the line. We talked about Rivers. The whole offense to me seems to have regressed. And I think you have to game plan your way out of that. It's like a shooter who's struggling from outside in basketball. It's like you got to get you got to go to the basket a few times and get a few points under your belt to start to get that confidence back again. And I just don't see them adjusting their game plan and putting the team, the offense specifically, in a better position to succeed early in games right now. So I think it's a combination.
Yeah, you're going to tell tonight, Bri. I'm sorry to cut you off. You're going to tell tonight because Tennessee's defense is horrible. They're horrible. So let's see what they look like. Colts offense, 22nd in the rush, 14th in pass, like middle of the pack. I didn't expect this mediocre offense to come out. I wasn't expecting Mac to get hurt. I thought Rivers had another year left to juice. So let's see. They're 5-3.
Yeah, they're 5-3, but 5-4 is 5-6-3.
You got to win tonight, and they're already down 7-0. You got. They're
already down 7-0 as we record this right now. So yeah, I can't argue with you that Rivers has not looked great as of late, but I do struggle with the narrative that this is somehow all on him. For the reason the team's struggling again, like they're not. I'm just looking at some of the stats from that game.
Brian, last week they dominated the Ravens the first half. They looked like they had the best defense in the league. Rivers dominated them, and then that fumble by Taylor turned the game around.
Yeah. Listen to this, dude. Darius Leonard, 13 tackles, 2 assists.
Yeah, he's a
killer. And then a fumble recovery. He is a maniac, dude.
He's a maniac.
He is an absolute beast. And that's the thing. You would think with him back, they'd be able to sustain it, right? And as you mentioned, the first half looked great. Second half looked like they didn't want to win that game. And that's just wild. They're definitely lacking that killer instinct right now, which they got to find.
They got to find it. They got to find it quick.
Yeah, they need a good win against a good team to start feeling better about themselves.
And Brian, going back to your conservative offense, they did the same shit. 3rd and 1, hurry up offense, hand up down the middle, and they get stopped. Like, it's shit like that. It's shit like that bothers
me. Dude, it's so frustrating because and
then you put Rivers in a 4th and 1 in a passing situation where if he doesn't get it, Rivers sucks.
Right. And he's not going to quarterback sneak because he's never done that in his entire career. And right. So and defenses know that too. He's not going to start at 38 years old running quarterback sneaks. So they know if he's out there, it's either a handoff and you're already screwed trying to let the play develop, or they're trying to run, some quick pass stuff. But I just wish they would adopt some of that more up-tempo, quick pass, quick developing plays like earlier in the game and just get into a rhythm first and then go from there. As opposed to, it looks like they're, trying to find their way sometimes before they finally settle in. Yeah, I just want to see them put the offense and Rivers in a better position to succeed. And then if they don't, then I'm willing to concede that Rivers is not living up to expectations, right? But
so let me ask you this, because I know you are a Rivers fan. Does he come back next year for the Colts?
I think he only comes back next year for the Colts if the Colts make the playoffs. That's how I feel about that. I feel like
that's fair enough.
If they're able to right the ship enough where, they turn it around, they end up with a good record, they make the playoffs, whether they win or lose. I think if the feeling at the end of the regular season is they got it together, Rivers is looking good, the offense is looking good, and they're considered to be a decent playoff team, then I think maybe he's thinking about coming back and running it back one more time. But I think if the season continues to be, if they go 500 the rest of the way and he continues to struggle, I think he's going to wrap it up, and say thanks for the opportunity for this 1 year, but wrap it up. Because the thing is, he's got a broadcasting career waiting for him when he retires.
Oh, absolutely.
So, or not. I know he coaches his kids' football teams and stuff like that. He may just want to go coach He can have a coaching career ahead of him if he wants. Like there's a lot of possibilities for him. He's not going to be hurting and the money he made this year, was it $25 million for 1 year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be all right one way or the other. But I do feel like he still has that competitive fire. And I feel like unless he feels that he can't do it anymore, he's going to want to run it back one more year. But I think a lot of that'll depend on the success of the team.
All right. I'm saying no.
You're saying this is it. This is his swan song.
This is his swan song, I think, with the Colts, regardless of what happens. I got some crazy ideas of what could potentially happen, but I do think this is his last year with the Colts.
Well, I think if it is, and it's a decision that he's making, and he's thinking about it now, then I would expect him to step it up over the rest of the season because he's made that decision. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to want to go out flat. He's going to want to go out slinging. And so if he knows this is it. So in that sense, I mean, it could actually spark them if he is making that decision. But again, I think a lot of it will also hinge on tonight. Like if he plays poorly tonight, then the quarterback situation becomes a big question mark for the rest of the season. Right. But if he acquits himself well tonight and, win or lose, it feels like he's been playing well, then I think we're fine. Obviously Reich has been very supportive of him so far and not willing to even entertain Rivers not being the quarterback. So I think he would have to be stinking it up pretty bad for him to not be the starter. And I just don't think that he's been doing that. Like he may not be leading them to the win, but he's not the reason they're losing.
No, so absolutely not.
We'll have to see how it plays out. All right. Well, even though this game has already started, like this is obviously a must win for the Colts. The line in this game going in was even. Do you have a final prediction for what you think happens tonight with the Colts?
Look, Brian, I'm being as unbiased as I can. I do believe in the Colts D. I think the offense needs some tweaks. He has to step up. I can't bet on the Colts right now. I got to take the Titans. They're just playing better football right now.
Well, I am going to disagree with you. And I'm going to say that Phillip Rivers roars to life, and they win 27-21 today in this game. Now, the Dolphins and Tua are facing off against Justin Herbert and the Chargers in Miami on Sunday. The Dolphins are favored by 2.5 points.
I bet against the Dolphins last week. I took the Cardinals. I thought the Cardinals were going to dominate them. I am not a believer in Tua. I thought he looked pretty good last week, and the team has rallied around him. They look like a totally different team. Dolphins D is playing well. Dude, I think Tua has a letdown. I think the Dolphins have a letdown, and I'm taking the Chargers.
I mean, I said it before. The Chargers now have no wins or no losses to spend for the rest of the season. They are now in win-or-go-home territory for the rest of the entire season. If they don't win against the Dolphins this week, that breaks them. That I would even venture to say we could see a coaching change if they get beat convincingly by the Dolphins this week. Or if they lose in the last second of the game, because that's almost worse than them getting crushed, is them losing again in the last second of the game.
So let me ask you this, Brad. As a fan, would you rather get blown out or lose in a heartbreaking way? And then I'm going to follow that up with, as a player, would you rather get blown out or lose in a heartbreaking way?
The answer might be the same for both. If in terms of the Chargers, I would rather them lose in the last seconds, because as painful as that is to me, what I see in that team right now is that it is a team that has been in every single game that they've played this year, and that includes against the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs and 3 Hall of Famers that they've played against this year. Justin Herbert and the Chargers have taken on all comers this year, and they just haven't been able to get the win at the end of the game. But they're in it, and they think that they're in it, and they believe that they can hang with these teams. All of those things are good things. The fact that they haven't been able to put it together and come up with a win, to me, is more of a coaching issue at this point. I think at some point it has to become a coaching issue that you're not able to create that sort of winning culture that you continually lose in these situations. But in terms of that team, they're not quitting because they're in every game.
For sure.
So when I would make the coaching change, I think is if I do see them get blown out, because then that tells me that guys have stopped trying, and that's a lot more concerning. As a player, I mean, it's brutal to lose in the last seconds of a game, but again, I think if you're getting killed, I mean, I could think of a game. I think it was against Hartford Public or East Hartford. We got beat like 67-3 by a team one year that I was playing in high school, and the game was out of hand so early, and we were getting beaten so badly and really beat up because the team was much bigger than us, and they were just pushing us all over the field, and it was just an absolute grind. And it's just so demoralizing when you get blown out like that, and it's hard to stay in the game. It's hard to stay focused on the game. It's hard to continue to execute at your own personal highest level because the game is so far out of reach. And so as painful as it is to lose in the last seconds, I think it's still getting blown out is just a different kind of demoralizing, I think.
No, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
It was East Hartford, by the way. I got the shit kicked out of me. Yes,
it was East Hartford.
It was East Hartford. In East Hartford, we got
at night, right? Wasn't it a night game?
It was a night game. And listen, we had a pretty big line, and you guys were just outmatched. Like these guys were fucking monsters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember. I mean, I just remember like us, me and like Yush looking at each other and stuff like that. Like, wow. Like, just picking ourselves up off the ground after a play where you've gotten absolutely destroyed. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. So yeah, I'll take the last second loss. I mean, not that I want to make a career out of that, but you know, I'll take the last second loss on occasion because at least you were in that game.
Yes.
And the games that you're not in at all are just really no fun to even play in. The other ones you know, at least can say it was a great game. Okay, well, let's hope that the Colts turn it around tonight. Let's hope that the Chargers deliver this weekend. I'd really like to get back to having a week, and I don't know that we've had like more than one so far where both teams actually win.
I don't think so either. It was the 1 week. I think it was maybe week 2 where they both won.
Yeah, so let's put it together. Let's finish a strong game tonight for the Colts, and then let's get a Chargers win this week, and then we can come back and just celebrate next week.
I would like that, Bri.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate your time as always. I appreciate anybody who's listening to this podcast, and let's go Bolts and let's go Colts this week, and we'll talk again next week.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Bri.